It was said to have happened on a night when the mountains of Echigo were drowned in silence, their forests buried beneath a weight of snow so deep that even the wolves dared not stir. A lone traveler, a woodcutter returning late from a distant village, struggled through the frozen paths. His breath was sharp and ragged, a cloud dissolving into the pale air. Lantern in hand, he pressed forward, the flame flickering against the howling wind. And then he saw her. At first he thought it a trick of the snow. A tall woman stood upon the path, her body draped in white so fine that it seemed spun from the storm itself. Her skin was paler than moonlight, her lips soft yet tinged with the faintest hue of blue. Long black hair spilled across her shoulders like ink on white silk. She neither shivered nor left a trace of footprint in the powder at her feet. The traveler's heart raced. He should have turned back. Every folktale whispered that when one sees a woman so beautiful in the dead of winter, death follows soon after. But the woman's gaze held him. Her eyes, deep black pools rimmed with frost, glimmered with an impossible mixture of sorrow and allure. She smiled faintly, and the cold around him deepened. "Will you walk with me?" she asked, her voice low, delicate, as though it were the very breath of the storm. The lantern in his hand died, snuffed out not by wind, but by the very chill of her words. And though every story warned him, the man stepped forward. The origins of Yuki-Onna in folklore. This story, one among many, belongs to the oldest and most chilling legends of Japan, the tale of Yuki-Onna, the Snow Woman. For centuries, villagers across Honshu and beyond whispered of her presence. She was the embodiment of winter itself, a phantom cloaked in beauty and silence. The earliest accounts trace back to the Muromachi and Edo periods, the 14th to 17th centuries, when harsh winters claimed countless lives. Farmers, hunters, and travelers who disappeared in blizzards were often said to have been taken not by frost alone, but by the embrace of a spectral woman who wandered the mountains. In these chronicles, Yuki-Onna is never merely a ghost. She is an enchantress, a spirit whose allure is as dangerous as the cold she commands. Her beauty was not incidental, it was central to her nature. Unlike crude monsters of other myths, she kills with elegance, a smile that weakens the heart, a touch that stills the blood, a kiss that turns breath to ice. The scholar Lecardio Hearn, who collected Japanese ghost stories in the late 19th century, described Yuki-Onna as a paradox, a phantom terrible yet lovely, whose touch is death, yet whose gaze holds men transfixed in longing. His retelling in Kwaidan, 1904, solidified her place in modern imagination, but long before Hearn, peasants spoke of her in hushed tones around winter hearths. She is not bound to one province. From Niigata to Naganon, from the mountain passes of Tohoku to the silent lakes of Aomori, her legend shifts in detail but remains constant in essence. A woman of unearthly beauty, born of snow and bound to the endless winter night. The duality of fear and desire. What makes Yuki-Onna endure across centuries is not simply terror, but fascination. Unlike malevolent spirits who appear twisted or monstrous, she is depicted as impossibly beautiful. Her presence invites both dread and yearning. To see her is to feel the pull of something forbidden, like fire to a moth, or like breath in the stillness of ice. This duality, fear entwined with desire, made her stories thrive in Japan's oral tradition. Men who traveled alone at night claimed not only terror, but temptation, a strange warmth that flared in their chest even as the world froze around them. Some claimed they saw her beckon, not with claws or shrieks, but with a gesture so soft, so human, that their bodies betrayed their reason. Thus, from the very beginning, Yuki-Onna was never simply a bringer of death. She was a seductress of the soul, a figure whose legends echo the secret fears and secret longings of those who told them.
To speak of Yuki-Onna is to speak of beauty sharpened to the edge of terror. In every account, whether whispered in a mountain inn or written in the diaries of travelers, she is described not as grotesque, but as perfect. Her form is tall and slender, draped in robes so pale they seem carved from moonlight. Her skin is whiter than the snow itself, untouched by sun or blemish. And yet, that very whiteness is a warning, a pallor too flawless, too still, like the beauty of a corpse laid beneath frost. Her face is the most dangerous part. Villagers told of eyes dark as midnight ponds, eyes that seemed to drink the soul of the one who gazed too long. Her lips, often tinted faintly with violet, carried a strange promise, warmth, and death intertwined. Witnesses spoke of smiles so gentle they drew men closer against their will. Even when fear screamed for them to turn back, their bodies betrayed them, compelled forward by desire. In traditional Japanese aesthetics, beauty is rarely separate from sorrow. The falling cherry blossom is admired not only for its color, but for the brevity of its life. So too with Yuki-Onna. She embodies mono no aware, the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. To see her is to witness perfection that cannot last, a fleeting vision that ends in death. And this, paradoxically, is part of her allure. The erotic cold. Many folktales emphasize the strange paradoxical sensation that Yuki-Onna brings. Men who encountered her did not describe heat, but an exquisite chill. Her touch was said to be icy, yet those who felt it often spoke of it as almost intoxicating, as though the body, overwhelmed by cold, confused it for something more intimate. There are accounts of travelers who swore they felt her breath upon their skin, cold as night air, yet strangely tender, like the caress of a lover leaning closer. The icy kiss, repeated in dozens of regional legends, became her signature, a kiss that left lips numb, blood frozen, and life extinguished. Yet even those who told of such deaths did so with a certain reverence, as if the victims had been chosen for something rare and terrible. Beauty as a weapon. Unlike the crude predators of folklore, demons with claws and teeth, Yuki-Onna's weapon is her allure. Her elegance disarms suspicion. She does not attack with violence, but with stillness, with serenity so complete it unsettles the mind. A woman alone in the mountains at night should provoke doubt, even alarm. Yet those who saw her described not suspicion, but enchantment. Some scholars argue that this is precisely why her legend persisted. She reflects a fear not of violence, but of surrender, of the human weakness to yield willingly to temptation, even when one knows it will destroy them. In this sense, Yuki-Onna is less an assassin of the body and more a hunter of the will. The mirror of desire. What makes her eroticism so unsettling is its mirror-like quality. In many tales, Yuki-Onna seems to appear not randomly, but to those already vulnerable, the lonely, the yearning, the unfulfilled. Her beauty is not just her own then, it is a projection of what her victim secretly longs for. A widow might see in her the tenderness of a husband lost. A restless youth might perceive her as the very embodiment of passion. To gaze upon her is to face one's own hidden hunger reflected back through the frost. And this, paradoxically, is part of her allure. Yuki-Onna seduces not by force, but by offering what mortals already crave: intimacy, beauty, and escape from solitude.
If Yuki-Onna were merely a specter of winter, she would be feared, but quickly forgotten, lost among the countless spirits and demons of Japan's vast folklore. What kept her legend alive, what made men whisper her name with equal parts terror and longing, was not simply her beauty, it was the way she used it. Unlike beasts that strike in frenzy or demons who come shrieking in the night, Yuki-Onna is patient. She does not rush her prey. She waits, like falling snow, descending quietly, steadily, until her presence covers every thought of the one she has chosen. The voice that froze the heart. In many tales, the first sign of her presence was not sight, but sound. Travelers spoke of hearing a woman's voice in the storm, low and distant, like a song carried through the wind. Sometimes it was laughter, delicate and musical, cutting through the blizzard like a silver blade. Sometimes it was a whisper that seemed to know their name. What unsettled them most was its tone. Her voice did not roar or command, it invited. Soft, almost hesitant, as though she were shy. This was her genius, the ability to cloak death in gentleness. A man hearing her call might pause, thinking perhaps a lost maiden needed help. Compassion would stir in his chest. He would step into the snowdrift to seek her, and in doing so, step into her trap. Legends describe the way her words could numb the spirit as surely as the cold numbed the skin. A simple phrase, "Will you walk with me?" was enough to loosen even the strongest man's resolve. For in that moment, it was not fear that filled him, but a strange, reluctant tenderness. The eyes that held dominion. Witnesses often dwelt on her eyes, black as midnight ponds, rimmed with the shimmer of frost. They seemed to pull the soul from the body. To meet her gaze was to feel the weight of eternity pressing down. There are stories of men who claimed that once they looked upon her eyes, they could no longer move. They stood rooted to the snow, limbs trembling, unable to decide whether they were more afraid to stay or to leave. Some felt as if she could see every hidden desire in their hearts, every weakness, every shame. And in those moments, resistance felt impossible. Her eyes did not only command fear, they promised something more. A sorrow lingered there, as though she herself were bound by loneliness, and that sorrow was a weapon as sharp as beauty. Many men believed they could save her, protect her, warm her. In reaching for her, they sealed their own fate. The breath of winter. More than one folktale speaks of the moment Yuki-Onna leaned close, her lips parting as though to sigh. The breath that escaped her was cold as the mountain air, yet those who felt it swore it carried the intimacy of a lover's exhale, warm against the ear. This contradiction, cold and intimate at once, unbalanced the mind. In some regions, mothers told children that if they felt a sudden chill upon the neck while alone at night, it was Yuki-Onna breathing softly upon them. To feel it was to know she had noticed you, and once she noticed, she would not forget. Gestures and movements. Her methods were not loud nor violent. She seduced with subtleties, the turn of her wrist, the sway of her robe, the stillness of her form against the snow. One tale from Nagano describes a merchant who swore that Yuki-Onna did not beckon him with words, but with the slow raising of her hand. He followed that gesture as though bound by invisible chains, every step deeper into the blizzard. In another version, she bowed slightly, her robe slipping from her shoulder. Not in vulgarity, but in grace. The glimpse of her pale skin, so perfect against the night, was enough to undo the man's resolve. Within moments, the snow had swallowed him whole. The silence as seduction. Perhaps her greatest weapon was silence,
In the emptiness of winter, silence is oppressive. It presses against the ears, magnifies every thought, every fear. Yuki-Onna used this silence like a blade. She could stand perfectly still, saying nothing, and her victims would unravel. A farmer's diary from the Edo period tells of seeing a woman in white during a storm. She did not move, she did not speak, but the longer he looked, the more he felt his chest tighten, as if his very heartbeat was bending toward her. At last, he fled. He lived to tell the story, but even in old age, he wrote that he still dreamed of her silence. Death as an embrace. The climax of her seduction was rarely violent. More often, it was described as an embrace. She would step close, her robes brushing against his victim's skin. The cold would seep into his body, yet he would not resist. Then came her kiss, the legendary kiss of frost. Lips soft as velvet, yet carrying death itself. Men died in her arms, not screaming, but sighing. Some were found frozen in the snow, their faces serene, almost peaceful, as though they had drifted into a final internal sleep. To perish in her grasp was, in its own twisted way, an intimacy beyond life. The ritual of choice. What makes Yuki-Onna's method so haunting is that she rarely forced herself. In almost every tale, the victim chose to listen, chose to step forward, chose to stay when they should have fled. She created the conditions, beauty, silence, sorrow, but it was always the man who surrendered. And this is perhaps the most terrifying truth of her legend. She is not a killer who takes, but a seductress who invites. Her victims betray themselves, undone by their own longing.
The Snow Woman was not reckless in her appearances. Like a hunter with refined instincts, she did not strike at random. The legends agree, she chose. And her choices reveal much, not only about her nature, but about the fears and desires of the people who kept her story alive. The loneliness she sought. Most consistently, Yuki-Onna is drawn to the lonely. Travelers walking alone in the mountain passes, woodcutters far from home, soldiers wandering back from battlefields. Her approach, always shrouded in silence, thrives in isolation. Folk tales tell of groups who marched through the snow together and survived, while a single man who lagged behind fell prey to her. In one version from Aomori, a group of hunters spoke of hearing a woman's laughter in the blizzard. All resisted, save one, an unmarried youth who had no family waiting for him. By morning, he was gone, his body never found. Loneliness in Japanese culture was itself a form of vulnerability. To be without family, without warmth by the fire, meant exposure not only to the elements, but to spirits. Yuki-Onna, then, is not simply a killer of men. She is a devourer of solitude. The young and the restless. Many tales highlight her interest in young men, especially those on the threshold of adulthood, apprentices, wandering students, farmers' sons. To them, she appeared not only as a woman, but as a vision of possibility. One Edo period story tells of a 19-year-old merchant's son who left his village in search of fortune. On his journey, he encountered a woman in white by the frozen river. She spoke little, but her gaze held him, and he followed her across the ice. Days later, his belongings were found scattered on the bank. His body, perfectly preserved, was discovered when the thaw came in spring. Why youths? Some say their blood is strong, their spirits vibrant, and thus more sustaining for the phantom. Others suggest that their inexperience made them more susceptible to beauty, more likely to mistake death for love. The exhausted and the weary. Yet Yuki-Onna was not drawn only to youth. Another pattern emerges. She sought those who were already worn thin by hardship, dying soldiers, starving farmers, laborers on the edge of collapse. In the folklore of Niigata, there is a tale of a farmer who, starving in winter, set out to gather firewood. He stumbled upon Yuki-Onna, who asked him if he wished to rest. Too weak to resist, he agreed. Villagers found him the next morning, frozen, but with a faint smile still on his lips. Here, she does not merely seduce, she offers release. To those already broken by the cruelty of life, her presence is not terror, but mercy disguised as intimacy. Death becomes not punishment, but solace. Married men and forbidden desire. Intriguingly, some versions of the legend describe Yuki-Onna appearing to married men, particularly those who strayed from their vows. She becomes a figure of temptation, testing their fidelity. In one famous variant, a man meets her during a storm and is nearly taken, but when he confesses that he has a wife and children waiting for him, she spares him, warning him never to speak of her. For years he obeys, until at last, in old age, he tells the story to his wife. The moment he does, she transforms before his eyes, revealing herself as Yuki-Onna, and vanishes in rage, leaving him lifeless. This tale reflects not only supernatural horror, but also a moral warning. Desire outside the bounds of loyalty invites destruction. Yuki-Onna in these stories is not random, she is retribution embodied, punishing those whose desires wandered. The vulnerability of children. Though rarer, some regions speak of Yuki-Onna's interest in children. A mother walking through the snow might find a woman approaching, asking to hold her baby. If the mother refused, she survived. If she agreed, the infant was found pale and lifeless, breath stolen by the phantom's kiss. This image is among the most chilling. The snow woman as a devourer of innocence. It reflects the deep, primal fear of winter itself, that no matter how a family tries to protect its young, the cold may take them. And so Yuki-Onna becomes the face of winter's cruelty towards the most fragile. The symbolism of her choice. Looking at these patterns, one sees that Yuki-Onna does not take at random. She embodies the dangers most feared in rural Japan. Loneliness, the peril of wandering without companions, youthful recklessness, the danger of untested desire, exhaustion, the inevitability of collapse under hardship, infidelity, the punishment for betrayal of trust, innocence, the fragility of children in winter. Each victim type reflects a cultural lesson. To travel alone is to risk death. To hunger for beauty without caution is to court ruin. To betray loyalty is to invite divine punishment. And to neglect children in the cold is to hand them over to the snow. Thus, Yuki-Onna becomes more than a spirit. She is a teacher cloaked in terror. Her victims chosen not only for her pleasure, but to remind the living of the thin line between desire and destruction. The hidden erotic undertone. Even in her choice of victims, there is seduction. She does not chase warriors in groups or women surrounded by family. She appears when longing is strongest, when defenses are weakest, when the soul itself hungers for closeness. To the lonely, she offers companionship. To the young, she offers initiation. To the weary, she offers rest. To the unfaithful, she offers temptation. To the mother, she offers danger disguised as gentleness. Always, her choices circle back to intimacy, emotional, physical, or forbidden. Death is her gift, but longing is her bait.
To fall into the orbit of Yuki-Onna was not an instant death.
No blade fell, no shriek split the night. Instead, it was a slow unraveling, like frost spreading across a window pane, delicate and beautiful, until the glass cracked beneath it. Her victims rarely understood what was happening, even as the final moment approached. For though they stood in the presence of death, they often believed themselves chosen for love. And in this lies the cruelest part of her nature. She allowed them to believe. The kiss of winter. The most enduring image of Yuki-Onna's embrace is her kiss. It appears in nearly every telling, though always with subtle variations. Some describe it as soft and lingering, the lips as warm as any mortal woman's, but within seconds, a numbing cold spread through the victim's chest, freezing the blood in his veins. His last breath escaped as mist, vanishing into her mouth, as though she drank not only his air, but his very soul. Others claimed the kiss itself was icy, a touch so cold it burned. Victims collapsed instantly, frozen in place, their lips pale blue, their skin stiffening like glass. Villagers who discovered them later often said their expressions were peaceful, even blissful, as if death had been mistaken for ecstasy. In either form, the kiss was both an act of intimacy and annihilation. To be kissed by Yuki-Onna was to be chosen, to be held close, and then to be erased. The embrace of frost. Not all tales speak of a kiss. Some describe her victims held in her arms, pressed to her body beneath flowing robes of white. The sensation was paradoxical. Silk soft against the skin, yet skin beneath colder than stone. One story from the mountains of Gunma tells of a traveler who was found frozen to death, his arms wrapped tightly around his own chest. Locals believed that he had been embraced by Yuki-Onna, that he mistook her chill for warmth until his body could no longer distinguish the difference. This confusion, the line blurred between comfort and destruction, is central to her legend. She offers closeness, a thing deeply craved in the silent snows of winter, but it is closeness that strips away life. The draining of vitality. Other versions of the legend suggest that Yuki-Onna's touch does not kill instantly. Instead, it drains. Men who encountered her sometimes returned to their villages alive, but changed. Their skin remained pale long after the snow had melted. Their breath rattled with weakness, as if each word cost them years. Some lingered for months, even years, before death finally claimed them. Villagers whispered that Yuki-Onna had marked them, that she returned night after night, visiting in dreams, drawing out their spirit little by little, until nothing remained. This image of a ghostly lover who feeds slowly on her chosen victim makes her kin to the Sukaban and Tsukio spirits of Japanese lore, but with one difference. She does not feed on desire itself, but on the warmth of life. Where others drain passion, Yuki-Onna drains the very fire that keeps blood moving through veins. Rare acts of mercy. Yet not all who met Yuki-Onna perished. In rare tales, she showed mercy. The most famous comes from Lafcadio Hearn's retelling in Kwaidan. Two woodcutters, lost in a blizzard, encountered her in a mountain hut. She killed the elder with her icy breath, but spared the younger, moved by his youth and beauty. She warned him never to speak of their meeting. Years later, he married a woman of extraordinary beauty who bore him children. Only when he confessed his secret did she reveal herself as Yuki-Onna. She spared his life once, but not twice. In these tales, her mercy is conditional. She does not grant life freely. She allows it only as a test. To break her condition is to invite inevitable ruin.
the lingering haunt. Perhaps the most terrifying accounts are not those of sudden death, but of lingering presence. Men who survived her encounter often spoke of dreams filled with snow, of a woman standing outside their home in the moonlight. They would wake with frost upon their skin, as though her breath had seeped into their rooms. Some swore they saw her watching from the edge of the village, her figure half hidden among drifting flakes. She did not enter, but she did not leave either. These men often wasted away in time, not from violence, but from longing. For once one has been chosen by Yuki-Onna, it is said that no mortal embrace could ever satisfy again. The final paradox. What happened after the seduction always circled back to the same paradox. She gave intimacy in the moment of death. Her kiss, her breath, her embrace, these were not the acts of a monster tearing flesh, but of a lover holding close. Her cruelty lay not in savagery, but in tenderness turned fatal. To those who told her stories around winter fires, this was the deepest horror of all. For it was not the violence of death that chilled them. It was the sweetness with which it came.
Legends endure not merely because they frighten, but because they touch upon truths buried deep in human nature. The tale of Yuki-Onna is more than a ghost story. It is a mirror held up to the fears, desires, and values of Japanese culture. To understand her is to glimpse the way people of past centuries understood both life and death, beauty and danger, longing and punishment. Winter as death made visible. In Japan, winter has always been more than a season. It is a trial. For rural communities of the Edo and earlier periods, heavy snows meant isolation, hunger, and often death. Entire families could vanish under the weight of famine or blizzard. Yuki-Onna then personifies this threat. She is winter given a face, the white shroud of snow turned into the white robe of a woman. Her kiss is the frostbite that claims lips and lungs. Her stillness is the silence of mountains buried beneath snow. To see her is to confront the truth that winter takes what it wishes, regardless of pleading. But by giving this faceless danger a form, beautiful, seductive, intimate, the people of Japan transformed nature's cruelty into a story. And in that story, they found both terror and a strange sense of meaning. Beauty entwined with death. Japanese aesthetics often embrace the fragile, the fleeting, and the bittersweet. The concept of mono no aware, the pathos of impermanence, teaches that beauty is heightened by its brevity. A cherry blossom is most beautiful the moment it falls. Snow is most haunting when it melts. Yuki-Onna embodies this philosophy. She is beauty incarnate, but a beauty that cannot last. To be embraced by her is to encounter perfection that destroys even as it dazzles. She is the ultimate expression of beauty's fleeting nature, irresistible in the moment, fatal in the memory. This entwining of allure and death is not unique to Japan, but in Yuki-Onna it is given its most chilling form. She does not hide her lethality, it is part of her seduction. Loneliness and desire. Another layer of her symbolism lies in the human need for companionship. Winter nights in mountain villages were long and quiet, broken only by the sound of wind against wooden walls. Loneliness gnawed as sharply as hunger. Yuki-Onna preys on this. She comes not to crowds, but to individuals. Men separated from their families, travelers far from hearth and home, those whose solitude made them vulnerable. She is the embodiment of longing itself, the wish for closeness turned against the one who feels it. Thus, she symbolizes not only the danger of the natural world, but the danger of human yearning. To crave beauty, to seek warmth in the cold is natural, but to surrender blindly to that craving is to risk annihilation. Punishment and moral lesson. Some tales present Yuki-Onna as more than a hunter. She is a judge. Married men who fall to her charms are punished for infidelity. Parents who fail to guard their children face her wrath. Those who reveal her secrets, breaking promises of silence, are struck down when she returns to reveal herself. In these stories, Yuki-Onna is not only a symbol of winter, but of karmic justice. She tempts, but she also tests. She spares the loyal, the faithful, the strong-willed, but destroys the weak, the unfaithful, and the careless. Through her, folktales carried hidden lessons. Stay true to your vows, protect your loved ones, resist temptation. Her beauty is the examination every soul must pass when faced with desire. A Japanese succubus? Comparisons are often made between Yuki-Onna and the succubi of Western tradition, female demons who seduce men and drain their life through intimacy. Indeed, the similarities are striking. Both are beautiful beyond mortal measure, both prey on the desires of men, and both kill not through violence, but through seduction. Yet there are differences that reveal cultural nuance. The succubus is often depicted as openly sexual, a corrupter of men's bodies and faith. Yuki-Onna, by contrast, is veiled, restrained, her allure cloaked in silence and sorrow. She represents not lust unchecked, but longing unanswered, the quiet yearning for connection in a cold world. She is less the demon of passion, more the spirit of solitude. Where the succubus burns, Yuki-Onna freezes. Where the succubus tempts with fire, Yuki-Onna tempts with snow. The feminine mystery. Yuki-Onna also reflects the ambivalent way femininity was viewed in traditional society. Women could be seen as nurturers, bearers of warmth and life, but also as mysterious, dangerous, unknowable. Her legend channels this duality. She is the maternal figure gone cold, the lover who offers tenderness and death in the same embrace. For men of pre-modern Japan, her beauty was both a dream and a threat, a reminder that what is most desired can also be what destroys. The eternal symbol. Taken together, Yuki-Onna becomes more than a ghost. She is a cultural archetype, expressing truths that remain as relevant today as they were centuries ago. That beauty can be dangerous, that loneliness can be fatal, that desire without caution can lead to ruin, that death often comes not with violence, but with silence and a smile. She is the spirit of snow itself, pure, flawless, and cold. A reminder that in the heart of winter, one may find both the most exquisite beauty and the most merciless death.
Legends rarely remain unchanged. They shift, they adapt, reshaped by the fears and desires of each new generation. And Yuki-Onna, though born in the icy solitude of pre-modern Japan, has never truly vanished. She walks still, only now across pages, screens, and imaginations worldwide. In literature and folklore studies, the most famous Western introduction to Yuki-Onna came through Lafcadio Hearn's Kwaidan, 1904. His retelling, full of sorrow and fatal beauty, captured readers far beyond Japan. To the Western world, she became emblematic of Japanese ghost stories, elegant, haunting, restrained yet terrifying. Japanese folklorists of the 20th century also re-examined her legend, interpreting her not just as a spirit, but as a psychological archetype. Some argued she represents suppressed female agency in a patriarchal society, an image of a woman who cannot be controlled, whose beauty destroys the men who underestimate her. Others saw her as a poetic allegory of winter, carrying moral lessons about survival, loyalty, and restraint. In film, the silver screen embraced her early. In 1968, Tokuzo Tanaka directed Kaidan Yukijoro, The Snow Woman, a film that presented her as both lover and executioner. The film's imagery, white robes against black forest, kisses of ice and silent snowfall, etched itself into Japanese horror cinema's DNA. Later, directors of the 20th and 21st centuries returned to her image again and again. In Masaki Kobayashi's Kawaidan, 1964, her story was told with a painterly, dreamlike quality, emphasizing silence, color, and atmosphere rather than gore. More recently, Yuki-Onna has appeared in horror anthologies, anime adaptations, and even children's tales, sometimes softened, sometimes sharpened, but always unmistakable. In anime and manga, Yuki-Onna has become a fertile ground for her reinvention. In Gegege no Kitaro, she appears as part of Japan's vast pantheon of yokai, sometimes dangerous, sometimes sympathetic. In Nurari Heian mo Mago, she is depicted as a loyal, protective figure, her icy powers harnessed for love rather than destruction. Countless other works, from shonen battle series to horror anthologies, reinterpret her, blending the erotic, the tragic, and the terrifying. Here, her beauty is emphasized not as death's mask, but as a form of supernatural allure. She becomes both weapon and weakness, capable of love, betrayal, and vengeance. In popular culture worldwide, her influence has traveled far beyond Japan. Western horror fans recognize her alongside vampires, succubi, and banshees. In fantasy video games, she often appears as an ice sorceress or a spectral temptress. Artists online paint her in endless variations: tragic ghost, fierce goddess, sorrowful bride. What makes her endure is adaptability. To some, she is a monster. To others, a tragic heroine. For many, she is the ultimate fusion of beauty and horror, a figure who embodies the seductive danger of desire itself. Why she still haunts us? In a world where winter is no longer as lethal as it once was, why does Yuki-Onna remain so compelling? Because the fears she embodies are timeless. Loneliness, betrayal, the pull of forbidden beauty, the possibility that intimacy can destroy as surely as violence. These truths do not meld with the snow. They live within us still, waiting in the silence of long nights. And so, though fewer men now wander snowy mountain passes, Yuki-Onna remains with us, not outside, but inside, in the secret places of the human heart, where desire and dread entwine.
The snow never asks permission. It falls when it will, covers what it chooses, erases what it touches. In this way, Yuki-Onna is not simply a spirit of folklore. She is winter itself, clothed in human form. For centuries, she has walked through firelit stories, whispered in huts where the wind clawed at thin walls. To some, she is a monster who drinks breath and life. To others, she is a tragic bride of the snow, condemned to wander forever between the warmth she longs for and the cold she cannot escape. Her paradox is eternal: beauty that destroys, tenderness that kills, desire that punishes. She reminds us that what we crave most deeply, companionship, intimacy, warmth, may also be the very path that leads us into ruin. A lesson in ice. The Japanese who first told her stories understood that winter is not only a season, but a teacher. Snow shows us the fragility of the body, the preciousness of fire, the cost of carelessness. Yuki-Onna, draped in white, walking silently across mountain roads, embodies all of these lessons. She does not scream her warning, she whispers it with a smile and a sigh. She invites, and the choice is always ours: to follow or to turn back, to surrender or to resist. And the weight of that choice, that is what gives her legend its power. Beyond Japan. Even now, in an age where heaters glow in city apartments and trains carry us swiftly through the cold, the figure of Yuki-Onna lingers. She haunts cinema, anime, literature, and art. But more than that, she haunts imagination itself. For she is no longer bound to snowy passes or frozen rivers. She exists wherever beauty carries danger, wherever intimacy hides risk, wherever longing can betray. She is in every story where desire has teeth, every moment where love wears a mask of death. The last silence. Close your eyes and listen. The snow against the window, the hush of the night. Somewhere in that silence, perhaps, a voice waits, a whisper that feels almost like your name. You may not see her, but she is there, standing in the drifting white, her gaze fixed upon you, patient as winter itself, waiting. And should you follow her into the snow, whether in dream, in story, or in life, you may find what so many before you did, that the most dangerous embrace is not one of violence, but one of tenderness. For Yuki-Onna is not only the snow woman. She is the silence between heartbeats. She is the beauty that kills. She is the eternal winter that walks beside us still.